Shen Bai has been reborn in the Hong Kong film world and has become the adopted son of the East Star Camel, constantly competing with the Mafia for territory. On this day, Shen Bai activated the loyalty card system, which could make his sworn loyal subordinates become loyal to death. At the beginning, the elite loyalty card made Situ Haonan become loyal to death, and he erected a flag in He Lan, earning him a reputation as an Eastern Star. Shen Bai said, "In movies and TV shows, the Eastern Star He Lan has been taken down, and Hong Kong Island has also been taken down, being trampled into a second-rate club. Now that I am Shen Bai, who dares to touch my godfather's camel? Who dares not to take the Eastern Star seriously?" On this day, Shen Bai, nicknamed Dongxing White Dragon, brought people from He Lan and killed them back to Hong Kong Island. Continuously recruiting experts, using loyalty cards, the first goal is to make Dongxing the #1 club on Hong Kong Island. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Dongxing White Dragon, Loyalty Card System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Holland, Amsterdam. This is a world-renowned tourist city. The scenery is beautiful, the air is fresh, and rows of houses, regardless of which one, are carefully designed and built, complementing the surrounding scenery and creating a more beautiful backdrop. In the early morning and dusk, when pedestrians are scarce on the streets, every minute and every second here is beautiful and worth taking photos to commemorate. In the western district of this city, there is a small estate. On the lawn, a young man in his early 20s, standing 1.86 meters tall and handsome, was lying on a recliner with a sun umbrella and a small table placed beside it. Take the pastry from the table leisurely and chew it in your mouth, then pick up the tea cup and savor it carefully. Enjoying this peaceful time. Helping his sunglasses on his face, Shen Bai put down his tea cup and let out a deep breath, sighing in his heart, "The impermanence of life has really shown me." In the past, I probably never thought that one day, I would come to Amsterdam and even join the famous East Star on Hong Kong Island. As soon as he thought of this, Shen Bai couldn't help but reminisce about his past. "I was originally just an ordinary college student and did not belong to this Hong Kong world. Taking advantage of the holiday to relax, I watched Hong Kong movies at home. In the movie, Dongxing is constantly losing ground. He was beaten by the people of He Lan and couldn't lift his head. When he returned to Hong Kong Island, he was also beaten and couldn't lift his head. I was almost beaten wherever I went." Shen Bai couldn't help but curse, "You're a coward." Unexpectedly, there was a sudden thunderous sound in the sky. With a thunderous explosion, Shen Bai felt a daze in front of him, and then crossed into the world of Hong Kong. Now, Shen Bai has become the adopted son of Dongxing Longtu Camel. Yes, his godfather is Camel. Jianghu nickname. White Dragon. Now, people are also in Amsterdam in Holland, not on the other side of Hong Kong Island. There's no other way, now we can only settle for it. As for the strange things that happened to him, since there's no way to change them, Shen Bai can only choose to accept them. Speaking, he picked up the teacup next to the table and took another sip of hot tea. Raise your hand, tighten your fist, and then release it again. Looking at this body that is different from my past self, it can be said that it is a very robust body. Shen Bai naturally also acquired the memory of the original owner. As the adopted son of the camel, the original owner was adopted by the camel from a young age, trained in martial arts and skills. Without holding weapons, it was not a problem to single-handedly fight 3 or 5 ordinary adults. Therefore, his godfather sent him to Amsterdam on He Lan's side to help East Star expand its territory in Amsterdam and establish its reputation on He Lan's side. Dongxing has been developing in He Lan for many years, and also has some territory in other cities in He Lan, but it is scattered and incomparable to Amsterdam. Amsterdam, as the most famous city in Holland, is extremely prosperous in all aspects, and all aspects of business, including protection fees, are relatively weak. Dongxing naturally has long been eyeing Amsterdam as a big fat. But no matter what, Dongxing is also an outsider from Hong Kong Island, and if they want to develop in Amsterdam, they will inevitably have to provoke conflicts with the local Hiku faction. Now, as the current big brother of Amsterdam, Shen Bai is facing such a dilemma. The conflict with the local Hsho party is gradually intensifying, and almost every day there is a battle breaking out. As outsiders, even if you want to reconcile with others, it is impossible. These ghosts are not so kind and will cooperate with you, only thinking about how to swallow you up. As an outsider, Dongxing can only survive in this area by fighting. Don't look at Shen Bai lying in his own estate now, living a leisurely life. This is just the moment of tranquility before the storm comes. At this moment, Shen Bai was also constantly pondering how to survive and become bigger and stronger in Amsterdam, given that his territory was not abundant and his little brother was not enough. I have been pondering for a long time. This is a headache-inducing and extremely tricky matter. Because Holland is different from Hong Kong Island. The conflicts between clubs on Hong Kong Island are nothing more than gathering young people, wielding knives, guns, and sticks, and setting up formations on the streets, chopping and killing each other. The comparison is about who has more people and who is ruthless. But on the side of Amsterdam, the henchmen were all armed with firearms and clashed with each other. The scene was more like a war than a battle. Here, the strength of a gang is not only related to the size of the territory and the amount of money it possesses, but also to the number of core players in your hands who dare to shoot, as well as the firepower of the firearms you hold. Shen Bai pondered how to resolve the local henchmen who had conflicts with him. After all, in this place, either you die or I die. Suddenly, a voice rang out in my mind. Ding, detected that the host has adapted to the identity and activated the loyalty card system. Shen Bai really wanted to sing at this moment. Finally waiting for you. Sure enough, the system is the standard configuration for the traveler. In such a situation, with the help of the system, one will have the capital to turn the tide. And the sound of the system continued to ring in Shen Bai. At the same time, in front of Shen Bai, a system operating interface that looked like a computer screen lit up. Ding, the loyalty card system has been activated, and a new host gift package will be given as a gift. Gift pack content. 1 elite loyalty card, 100 ordinary loyalty cards, and 1 special strong talent. Ding, strong talent, can be used now. Will the host strengthen it? P.S. The old author has opened a new book and hopes that if you think it looks good, you can give some flowers and review tickets to support it. Also, there is no need to waste money. Just give the author some flowers. Thank you for your support. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Strong Talent, Situ Haonan and the Death Soldier. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Strengthen. After seeing this skill with strong talent, Shen Bai naturally did not hesitate to select the talent enhancement option on the interface of the system. After selection, the mechanical sound of the system sounds. Ding, start strengthening the host. As the system sound fell, Shen Bai only felt a warm current pouring in from his head, slowly flowing through his body from top to bottom, merging into his limbs. Gradually, this warm current seemed to turn into an electric shock-like stimulation, somewhat tingling, but it didn't make people feel a headache. Instead, it felt comfortable all over, and the muscles all over the body became hot and dry. Shen Bai lowered his head and raised his hand. Visible to the naked eye, the muscles on oneself begin to gradually tear and expand. Although Shen Bai has been trained in martial arts by camels since childhood, his figure has always appeared somewhat thin. But after a full hour of strengthening the system, Shen Bai could clearly feel that his muscles had slightly expanded outward. My body now looks even more robust, even reaching a height of nearly 1.88 meters, making me look very stylish. Moreover, Shen Bai trained various combat skills and marksmanship from a young age. Moreover, with the current strength, it is already much higher than a normal person. Standing up from the chair, Shen Bai clenched his hands into fists, tightened them, and then swung a few fists into the air to feel his own strength. According to Shen Bai's estimation, in the past, his wrist strength was already about 1.5 times that of a normal person. Now, with the support of the system, it is at least 10 times greater than the strength of a normal person. Feeling the tight body, Shen Bai wore a satisfied smile on his face, nodded, looked at the ashtray on the table, and picked it up. Although this ashtray is made of glass, it is extremely thick, not to mention with the power of ordinary people, they want to break it in half. Even if you throw down the ashtray from the second floor, you may only bump off some edges. Hey! Shen Bai let out a low growl, followed by a crackling sound. Blue veins erupted on the back of the hand. It can be seen that the thick ashtray has developed tiny cracks from the inside, and then quickly cracked open. Bang! With this loud bang, Shen Bai surprisingly crushed the ashtray with his bare hands. It's truly a product of the system, it's a masterpiece. Shen Bai was very satisfied with his brute force as he was able to crush the hard ashtray with his bare hands. Later, Shen Bai wanted to find some more objects to test his strength, but found that when he raised his hand or walked, his body was covered in a feeling of mud. It turned out that after the previous body transformation, there was a lot of mud on the body, making it sticky all over. Upon seeing this, Shen Bai entered the room and went to the bathroom to clean his body. Washed up. Shen Bai had a towel hanging from his waist and stood in front of a full-body mirror, carefully examining his strengthened body up and down. If I hadn't been wandering the streets now, with just this appearance, whether in Holland or Hong Kong Island, I could have gone to shoot a film and become an actor. Life would probably be even more comfortable than now. After seeing my body strengthen again, not only did I increase my height, but my skin also became more fair and smooth, and the lines on my face also changed slightly. Originally, Shen Bai was not bad looking. Now walking on the street, it is estimated that 9 out of 10 women will turn around and look at him. Shen Bai was naturally extremely satisfied with this. Dry your body and put on your clothes. Shen Bai once again called out to the system interface and looked at the introduction of the Elite Loyalty Card previously awarded by the system. Elite Loyalty Card. Mainly used for red stick-level dwarf mules who pledge loyalty to their hosts. It can turn red stick-level dwarf mules into loyal ones and have 100% loyalty to their hosts. Normal Loyalty Card. Mainly used for ordinary strength short mules, it can turn ordinary strength short mules into loyal ones, and has 100% loyalty to the value. Loyalty Card can be used on the system interface. I see. Shen Bai looked at the introduction to using loyalty cards and clicked on the Elite Loyalty Card, which then redirected to the system page. Among the options of this Elite Loyalty Card, Shen Bai only has the option of Situ Haonan. It seems that there are limitations to the use of this thing. Shen Bai quickly understood that this Elite Loyalty Card must require the other party to swear allegiance to themselves before they can use it, so that the other party can be absolutely loyal to themselves and not betray. If you are not loyal to yourself, this card cannot be used against the other party. Capturing dragons and tigers, Situ Haonan. In Shen Bai's memory, Situ Haonan did indeed swear allegiance to him. He is now also his subordinate, a red stick-level junior, and he usually follows his orders. But Shen Bai knew that the true loyalty of Situ Haonan was not to himself, but to the camel. To be precise, it was the camel who was worried about Shen Bai coming to He Lan's side to develop alone, and worried about safety, so he entrusted Situ Haonan to take care of him. At that time, it was still the camel who promoted Situ Haonan to become one of the 5 tigers of the Eastern Star, the dragon-capturing tiger. Situ Haonan felt grateful and swore allegiance to Shen Bai in front of the camel, disguised as a subordinate. In terms of strength, Situ Haonan is undoubtedly an elite. It's about loyalty. Shen Bai glanced at the system interface and the number displayed on it was 60. Although this loyalty is not low, if there are some major events or sufficient incentives, I believe Situ Haonan will not hesitate to betray me. Thinking of this, Shen Bai immediately clicked on the interface and used the elite loyalty card against Situ Haonan. In an instant, Situ Haonan's loyalty rose to 100. Subsequently, Shen Bai looked at the regular loyalty card. On the interface, it shows that the number of ordinary subordinates under me is around 1,000, all of which are listed in the system's name. Shen Bai swiped the interface and made a selection one by one. He selected the top 100 skilled young men and used ordinary loyalty cards to turn them all into his own loyal followers. This can also be considered as Shen Bai's true team. After using the loyalty card, the sound of the system suddenly rang out. Ding, detected that the host is ready, the system is releasing the task. Task content. Intensify the conflict with the Heisho Party's Smith Dan. Task reward. 200 loyalty cards, infused with the Sharpshooters reflective arc. P.S. The new book set sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Preparing to start a war and take Amsterdam. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After obtaining 100 young brothers from the dead, along with Situ Haonan's elite red stick, he continued the absolute loyalty of 101 young brothers. Shen Bai quickly selected all of these 100 people to be his confidants and bodyguards, staying in his villa and following his orders. Meanwhile, each of them was equipped with firearms. With these 101 dead soldiers as bodyguards, even if the henchmen in Amsterdam kill their own estate today, Shen Bai will not suffer any harm until all of these 101 people die. This is the role of being a martyr. With them around, Shen Bai's sense of security can be said to be instantly filled up. Finally, he looked a bit like a boss, so there was no need to worry about Heshidang killing him at any time. Of course, Shen Bai would never do something like this, waiting to die. Shen Bai wants to use this group of people as his team to do something in Amsterdam. Previously, Shen Bai would have had a headache over the hostility towards Heisho Party, which was largely due to the issue of loyalty among his subordinates. He Lan's henchmen are naturally united in their dealings with the outside world. But Shen Bai's side is different. Having fierce generals like Situ Haonan in his hands, as well as these 1,000 young brothers, after arriving in Amsterdam, he only took a small piece of land in the western region. After a conflict with the Heisho Party, both sides have been deadlocked. One of the major reasons is Situ Haonan. Shen Bai knew that Situ Haonan was not a person who only knew how to do things without thinking. Therefore, when it comes to Amsterdam, there is a conflict with the Heisho Party and a territorial dispute is initiated. In many cases, Situ Haonan did not wholeheartedly work for his own safety or interests, which led to the current situation. It's also a headache for Shen Bai. But now, Situ Haonan has wholeheartedly pledged his loyalty and will never betray him. There are still 100 martyrs under his command who will never betray him, as well as over 900 little brothers who, although not absolutely loyal, can still command and use him. Now that he has it, truly able to absolutely follow his own team, Shen Bai naturally won't wait for the other party to call, but will make a bold move on his own. The next day, in the afternoon. Ding Lingling. Shen Bai, sitting in the study, heard a ringing bell. Raise your hand and shake the bell placed next to your hand, indicating that people outside the door can enter. The next moment, the door opens. Directly from the outside, I walked into a man wearing a black leather jacket, brown leather boots, with a cut in the head. Although he was not very tall, his body was extremely tight and sturdy. After the man entered, he walked up to Shen Bai and immediately bowed down, respectfully shouting, "Boss." Sit down, Haonan. The man who came in was Situ Haonan. Shen Bai closed his book and pointed to the sofa in front of him, gesturing for Situ Haonan to sit down. Situ Haonan heard this and didn't say anything nonsense. He immediately followed Shen Bai's words and sat down on the sofa. Boss, what's your order for calling me here? Shen Bai nodded and said to Situ Haonan, I want you to send someone to keep an eye on the abuser Ma Senior, Shen Bai said and gestured with his hand around his neck, I want to get rid of him. The task assigned by the system is to provoke a war with the Heshou party. Therefore, it is the quickest and currently the most beneficial method for oneself. It's about taking down the godfather of the Haman faction, Smith Dan, one of his subordinates, and the abuser, Mason, who is in conflict with him. Under Smith Dan's command, there are three main cadres. They are Jack the Ripper, Brady the Scissorer, and Mason the Assassin. Shen Bai is going to start with Ma Senior. What? Situ Haonan hesitated on his face after hearing what Shen Bai had said. After a moment of silence, he continued, Boss, if we get rid of Ma Sen, it will definitely anger Smith Dan. Our relationship will deteriorate even further, and we will never engage in such small fights like we do now, which will inevitably lead to war. Situ Haonan's hesitation was naturally not disloyalty to Shen Bai. On the contrary, it is precisely because of absolute loyalty, combined with rational consideration of the current situation, that such a statement is made. In Situ Haonan's view, going to war with others now is definitely not the right choice, and even if the situation worsens after the war, it may threaten Shen Bai's life. By then, things may become difficult to handle. Of course, if Shen Bai insists on his own opinions, Situ Haonan will not say anything more. Absolute loyalty will only make him absolutely execute Shen Bai's orders. I know about this situation, Shen Bai responded with a hint of coldness on his face. Haonan, I'm going to start a war now and take Amsterdam for the East Star. The previous kind of small fights and fuss was too slow. If we had to come, we would have had a big one. Otherwise, given the current situation, even if we were given another 10 years, our Eastern Star would probably not have been able to truly develop in Amsterdam. Since that's the case, why don't we burn our boats and take a gamble to break through the encirclement with a small and broad plan? Upon hearing this, Situ Haonan stopped saying anything and responded to Shen Bai, Boss, I understand. I will send someone to investigate now. The sun is about to set in the west, in the evening. Situ Haonan returned to his study. Shen Bai was still quietly reading in the study, sitting on the sofa. The faint sunlight penetrated through the window and shone on his face, giving a sense of elegance. And, I also wear a pair of glasses around me. Although I am not nearsighted, sometimes I like to put on this kind of art. Upon seeing Situ Haonan return, Shen Bai took off his glasses and asked, How is the situation? Situ Haonan immediately replied, Masan is staying at the bar in Jelu tonight, and he will go there for the night. The Jelu bar is a street bar located at the junction of the Heshou party and the East Star. The location of this bar does not belong to both sides, more precisely, it should be a place where both sides compete with each other and often engage in firefights. As a cadre and also a pioneer, Mason often conflicts with Dongxing and likes to operate in the border areas of the territory, stirring up trouble. That's also why Shen Bai made Mason his first target. Okay, call on the brothers, prepare the car, we'll start tonight. The war is starting, Shen Bai ordered. Situ Haonan immediately responded, Understood, I'll go prepare now. In less than half an hour. Shen Bai was wearing a black leather jacket, followed by 50 or 60 young men who were also wearing it, each with a cut in their head and bulging waist. He sat in a dozen or so business cars. The convoy drove towards the direction of the Jelu bar in a majestic manner. P.S. The new book set sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Mighty Strength, Breaking Bones. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the back seat of the business car, Shen Bai closed his eyes to rest. Recalling in my mind, information about the abuser Mason. Mason, as a henchman in Amsterdam and the 3rd Cadre under Smith Dan's command. My height is not considered high, at 1.71 meters. In my early years, I joined the military and experienced wars of all sizes. Although there is no more detailed information, during the war, it seems that Mason's face was disfigured due to contact with some chemicals, resulting in a particularly violent personality, a strong sense of revenge, and a heart of tyranny. Almost every person who fell into his hands was brutally killed by Mason, earning him the nickname of a murderer. Its fighting ability is not very strong, although its shooting is good. It cannot be said to be very good, mainly because it is cruel and does not conceal its love for killing, which leads to many people being extremely afraid of it. Let's settle those past accounts today, Ma Senior. Shen Bai slowly opened his eyes after recalling Ma Sen's information, and a cold light burst into his eyes. Shen Bai's recollection is not just about Mason's information. As a member of the club and the leader, I am also kind to my brothers and often chat and drink together. It is extremely normal for conflicts between clubs to lead to death. However, Shen Bai remembered many of his former subordinates who had been drinking and singing with him the day before. The next day, the bodies were discarded on the street, one by one without a whole body, and the death was extremely tragic. Don't think too much, only Mason would do such a thing. Therefore, these bad deaths, Shen Bai had long wanted to kill this ghost old Ma Senior. An hour later, the convoy arrived at the door of the bar in Gallo. These dozen or so business vehicles, with their doors all open, walked from above and got off a large ticket. They were all strong men wearing black leather clothes, all of whom were naturally from Dongxing. Among them, the leaders were Shen Bai and Situ Haonan. "Boss, that's it here," Situ Hao said to Shen Bai in the south. "Let's go." Shen Bai nodded and, with Situ Haonan and his group of younger brothers, pushed the door into the bar. The streets outside may not be deserted, but at night, there are not many pedestrians. You can enter the bar as if you have come to another world. Inside, there are Xing songs and Yen dances. The red, green, and purple lights are constantly flickering, and the dynamic music is constantly exploding, not only stirring the eardrums, but even shaking the heart. Countless young men and women, twisting their waists and hips, holding high their wine glasses, once again indulging in the rare years of youth in life. "Do you need to book a private room for a few people?" The waiter inside the bar saw a large crowd of 50 or 60 people walking in, dressed similarly. Immediately walked up and greeted with a smile, asking if any service was needed. But neither Shen Bai nor Situ Haonan, nor the younger brothers following behind, paid attention. But instead, the diameter moves forward, searching for Mason's figure in the bar. As they advanced, the little brother beside them pushed away a few ghosts and white girls who were dancing. At the moment when he was in high spirits, being pushed by someone would naturally make him angry and say, "Hey, it's that shameless home." Halfway through the curses, those ghosts saw a group of strong men under Shen Bai's command, dressed in dark leather clothes and shaved their heads. The anger that was originally on his face immediately disappeared, and he quickly turned his face away, even afraid to make any contact in his sight. The whole person, without any arrogance, quickly shrank back like a mouse picking up a cat. Many of these dancing ghosts naturally know Shen Bai. Therefore, upon seeing Shen Bai, these devils immediately confessed and quickly moved away from him, afraid to provoke him. At the bar, Mason was drinking with a few young men, holding 2 white girls in his arms. Naturally, he saw Shen Bai coming with his little men behind him. However, there was no fear on Mason's side, and his face still wore an arrogant expression. He shook his glass in his hand and occasionally took a sip. When Shen Bai walked up to him, Mason still crossed his legs and arrogantly grinned at Shen Bai, saying, "Why are you Dongxing's dogs coming to my territory?" This is not a place where you can stay. Take advantage of my good mood today and get out quickly. Upon hearing this, Shen Bai did not show any anger on his face, or rather he did not want to have any nonsense with the other party. Wave your hand. The fallen soldiers under their command quickly dispersed and surrounded the entire deck. Seeing the situation like this, Mason's eyelids twitched and he frowned as he said to Shen Bai, what do you people from Dongxing want to do? Until now, Mason still did not panic. Because although Dongxing also has a territory in Amsterdam, the size of the territory is not more than 1/3 of that of their Smith Dan Heisho party, and they usually only dare to play around with them, not even dare to tear their face. This is Mason's confidence, he is not afraid of the Eastern Star at all. Or rather, he felt that Shen Bai didn't have the courage to move himself. Obviously, Mason was too arrogant. Shen Bai didn't want to talk to him anymore. Suddenly, he took a step forward and grabbed Mason's hair with a fierce stretch of his hand. His terrifying arm force instantly pressed Mason's head onto the coffee table. Bang! In the bar, a crisp sound sounded, which was the sound of Mason's head breaking through the glass. Following that was Mason's screams, "Ah! Ah! Damn it! Big brother!" The 4 younger brothers next to Mason immediately stood up and fought back when they saw their big brother being beaten. But the people brought by Shen Bai are not just for watching. Seeing the 4 little brothers move, the 4 dead soldiers around quickly stepped forward, drew out their daggers from their arms, acted swiftly without any delay, and directly stabbed the daggers into the hearts of several ghost guys, who were tightly held down and stabbed to death. Shen Bai, on the other hand, grabbed Mason's hair and lifted his 1.7-meter body, dragging him towards the balcony while saying, "What's not to do? I just wanted to kill you today." Mason was dragged to the balcony, his disfigured face lying with blood from the previous heavy blow, now appearing twisted and incredibly bloody. Mason's eyes stared fixedly at Shen Bai and roared loudly, "You're looking for death." Shen Bai didn't want to listen to Mason's nonsense and didn't wait for him to continue speaking. Directly, hold Mason from behind and tighten his back with both hands. Aren't you a masochist? I'll let you taste it today, the taste you've given my subordinates before. Bang 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 bang. Mason not only broke his anger, but also his entire ribs and spine. In this way, he was strangled alive by Shen Bai with his strong arm strength. Situ Haonan saw this scene in his eyes. His eyes flashed with enthusiasm. The dead soldiers under his command also showed fanaticism on their faces. Shen Bai showed his terrifying power for the first time and strangled Mason to death. Subsequently, Shen Bai pushed the body forward and threw it down from upstairs. With a bang. The dripping sound of the flute kept ringing. Mason's body smashed a parked car below. I can't die anymore. P.S. New book set sale, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets, even a flower, an evaluation ticket, or a monthly pass can do it. Qingming outing in happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. 300 Dead Men, Sharpshooters. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Mason was killed or left behind from upstairs. This scene instantly startled many people, but the ghosts and some white girls who were watching the excitement around did not leave. Meanwhile, many people also feel the seriousness of the situation. The situation is probably bad. Mason is a member of the Heisho gang, a cadre under the godfather Smith Dan, but now he has been killed by Dongxing White Dragon. It is estimated that there will be another war between Dongxing and Heisho gang. During this period, Dongxing has been developing in this area of Amsterdam, stirring up wind and rain. It's not the first time there have been various small and playful fights with Smith Dan. It can be said that they have already started several times in a row. The thugs who wander in Amsterdam naturally understand this matter. As soon as they see this scene, their keen sense of smell can immediately detect it, and it is feared that a war will start next. On Shen Bai's side, after dealing with Ma Sen, he coldly looked down at Ma Sen's body, then waved his hand and led his men onto the car, returning to the manor. Returning to the manor and getting off the car, Shen Bai immediately instructed Situ Haonan, "Tonight, you will arrange all your subordinates and set up good hands in every corner of the manor. Not even a mosquito is allowed to fly in." "Understood." Situ Haonan immediately nodded in response. They killed Mason here, but it was done openly and openly in public without any disguise. Therefore, it is estimated that this news will reach Smith Dan's ears in less than half a day. Although it is unlikely that Smith Dan will send someone to seek revenge tonight, it is still advisable to be cautious and avoid losing his life due to his own negligence. That would be foolish. "Don't worry, boss, I will arrange it properly. You handle things, I can rest assured." Shen Bai patted Situ Haonan's shoulder and then returned to his room first. In the room, Shen Bai did not rest. But sitting on the bed, closing your eyes, calling out to the system in your heart. Congratulations to the host for completing the system release task. Intensifying the conflict with the Heisho Party's Smith Dan. Complete the task and receive rewards. 200 regular loyalty cards, infused with the Sharpshooters reflection arc. May I ask if indoctrination is being carried out now? Execute. Shen Bai immediately accepted the task reward. Ding, start instilling. As the sound of the system fell, Shen Bai felt a current transmission inside his body. This time, it's different from last time. Last time, Shen Bai felt his own muscle swelling. And this time, as the current flows through the body, it stimulates the nerves. Shen Bai can feel that his reaction ability has significantly improved, and at the same time, he has more detailed knowledge about firearms in his mind. So, it lasted for a full hour. After the indoctrination was over, Shen Bai opened his eyes, walked to a desk, and opened the drawer of the desk. There is a revolver inside. Reaching out and holding the firearm in your hand. Shen Bai felt that it was different from before, as if the firearm here was his own body, and he could easily use it, like using his arms and fingers. Unable to hold back the emotions in my heart. Shen Bai took this revolver and arrived at the firearms training ground in the estate. This is specially arranged by Shen Bai, and there is training on a regular basis. Start the equipment on the training ground, attach the magazine, and then hang the left wheel around your waist. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Dee. With the start prompt sound, bang bang. Two sounds sounded almost simultaneously. In the blink of an eye, in less than a second, Shen Bai had already pulled out the left wheel from his waist, pulled the trigger, and fired 2 shots in a row. Looking ahead, there are 2 hanging targets about 10 meters away. 10 rings, 10 rings. Both shots hit the red star. Just by relying on his tactile sensation, Shen Bai achieved 10 rounds of shooting, and the speed and accuracy of drawing the gun were completely worthy of the name of a skilled marksman. After obtaining a satisfactory answer, Shen Bai returned to his room and once again clicked on the system page, selecting 200 skilled young men and using ordinary loyalty cards to turn them into his own warriors. The system also has rankings and estimates for the strength of these little brothers. Although they have differences, they are not much different from ordinary people. Using systematic calculation methods, their strength is around 10. As for the strength of the red stick, it is around 20. After using loyalty cards against these 200 little brothers, Shen Bai also had 300 dead soldiers in an instant. The next day, Shen Bai also arranged for these 200 dead soldiers to enter the villa, dressed uniformly, changed into black leather clothes and shoes, and distributed firearms. At the same time, say to them, "Last night, our Eastern Star took down one of the three cadres under the leadership of He Han party member Mason and Smith Dan. Next, I will lead you to start a war with the local He party, unify Amsterdam, and establish the name East Star in Holland Amsterdam. Tell everyone that our East Star is the true number one club and will not be overshadowed by any force. The first club. The younger brothers immediately followed Shen Bai's words and raised their arms, shouting with great momentum. On the other side, in an office building. A ghostly man looks gentle and polite, with a pair of glasses on his face. People who know him will never be deceived by his appearance. Because this person, Jack the Ripper, is one of the three cadres of the He party, and is Smith Dan's think tank. At the same time, his character and skills are also extremely fierce. He retired from the Special Forces and was recruited by Smith Dan. Before joining the Special Forces, he also worked as a doctor and enjoyed using surgical knives to help people open their stomachs, hence the nickname Ripper. Mr. Smith, Mason was killed. It was done by people from East Star, Jack reported. Mason got killed. Damn it. Smith Dan's face darkened as he heard the news. Dongxing, these yellow-skinned monkeys, all deserve to die. P.S. The new book set sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. War with Lanhei's Hand Party. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Has anyone read this book? If anyone is watching, please give some flower evaluation tickets to give the author some confidence. The phone rings. In the study, Shen Bai picked up a cigar from the cigar box on the table, cut it open and lit it, held it in his mouth, and then picked up the phone receiver, leaning against his ear and saying, "Who?" On the other side of the phone, a familiar voice came through. It was Smith Dan, the godfather of Haishaodang, who called. "I'm Smith Dan. Have you, Dongxing, these yellow-skinned monkeys been too arrogant lately? Dongxing Bai Long, are you going to war with us Haishaodang?" Even on the phone, you can hear the other person suppressing the emotions that are about to explode. Shen Bai took a deep breath of his cigar and slowly exhaled the white smoke from his mouth. "Mr. Smith, our war has already begun, hasn't it?" Upon hearing this, the other side of the phone. Smith Dan forcefully pressed the receiver onto the phone and hung up. In the shadow, one could see that Smith's face was twisted at this moment, with anger written all over it and a gloomy expression like water. "I will crush you yellow-skinned monkeys." In the study of the manor, Shen Bai lay on the sofa, continuing to enjoy the taste of cigars in his mouth. He didn't care about the little episode brought by Smith Dan. Because no matter what Smith Dan said on the phone, he wants war or reconciliation. Shen Bai's goal was extremely clear from the beginning, and there was only one path between him and the He party. Since he had already arrived in this world, Shen Bai couldn't be content. He was just the godson of a camel, and such a title would forever be shrouded in the radiance of others. Shen Bai must gain immense prestige in order to climb higher. Otherwise, just being a camel's godson not only fails to convince others. It is even more possible for others to see themselves as the second-generation ancestor enjoying the radiance of camels. Therefore, no matter how Haishaodang reacts, Shen Bai only has one goal, which is to take Amsterdam and establish his reputation as the East Star White Dragon in He Lan. As the first step for Shen Bai to climb higher. In the study of the godfather of Haishaodang, Smith Dan. Smith Dan called his two officials, Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissor, standing on either side of the desks and greeting Smith Dan, godfather. The one with a relatively clear voice is Scissor Hand Brady standing on the right. He is about 1.9 meters tall, and his body looks quite robust, which can be considered as a tall and imposing person. Brady used to roll up the sleeves of his shirt, revealing the scars on his arms. It is said that Brady was once a tailor who was skilled in using scissors and had excellent craftsmanship. Later on, he joined the Heshugang and naturally couldn't use scissors as a small tool in battles. Brady replaced his weapon with a kandao, making it equally agile and swift. In small-scale battles where the winner has already been determined or destined, Brady likes to use his scissors to end the opponent's life. Therefore, he also gained the reputation of Scissor Hand Brady. "You guys," Smith Dan said as he looked at his two subordinates, "immediately gather all the troops under his command, distribute weapons, and enter the territory of the East Star. Today, we officially go to war with Dongxing. This is a battle of life and death, and it is bound to wipe out the East Star. In the future, in Amsterdam, I don't want to hear about this gang called the East Star again. Return to the estate." Shen Bai extinguished the cigar in his mouth, and the sound of the system echoed in his mind. System release task. Kill Smith Dan and take Amsterdam. Task reward. 2 elite loyalty cards and 300 ordinary loyalty cards. The conflict between Dongxing and Smith Dan has been going on for quite some time now, and both sides have been dealing with each other for a long time. Shen Bai knew that with Smith Dan's temper, he would probably start killing him immediately after declaring war. Thinking of this, coupled with the tasks released by the system, Shen Bai knew that he should also take action on his own side. Calls Situ Haonan into the study. Standing in front of Shen Bai, Situ Haonan bowed and asked, "Boss, what orders do you have?" "Call on all the people in the manor," Shen Bai said. "Let's go to the basement." "Yes." Situ Haonan responded and executed. After all the people and horses have gathered, Shen Bai led Situ Haonan and his 300 soldiers into the basement of the manor. In other wealthy estates, basements are usually used to store fine wine. And Shen Bai used this basement as an arsenal. Standing in front of the door, 2 young brothers from the dead walked forward and pushed open the heavy gate. Shen Bai walked in with a person and lit the lights. It can be seen that, except for the aisle in the middle, there are batches of firearms stored on both sides. In addition to common firearms, there are also important firearms stored in it. Hand grenades, explosives, rocket launchers. Compared to the local Hesho party, Shen Bai has always been at a disadvantage in terms of the number of people and horses in his hands, which cannot be compared with it. If the number of subordinates is not comparable, then use the quality of the firearms in hand to make up for it. So, Shen Bai purchased a batch of heavy firearms and stored them here. The reason why Dongxing was able to establish itself in Amsterdam is precisely because its subordinates were brave, as well as dared to use such heavy firearms. Such a fierce firearm, used without any restraint, coupled with such a deadly posture. In battle, even if there is a disadvantage in terms of numbers, in terms of firepower and momentum, they will not lose to the Hesho party at all. Only in this way can one occupy a place in Amsterdam. Everyone, arm themselves well. This time, there will be no restrictions on the use of firearms. With Shen Bai's order, 300 dead soldiers immediately took action. Hand-picked selection, semi-automatic firearms, assault firearms, and even grenades and rocket launchers. All have been distributed. Situ Haonan on the side couldn't help but say, "Boss, wouldn't it be too bad for us to use so many firearms? Easy to attract the official attention of ghosts." "Of course I know." Shen Bai looked at Situ Haonan. "If we win this battle, the entire Amsterdam will be ours. It's not the turn of the year for the ghosts to speak. If we lose, we'll all die. What heavy weapons are still in use now? We Dongxing Guangjiao are not afraid of wearing shoes. Fight to the end with the ghost this time." Shen Bai selected a desired firearm, put it in his hand, and continued to say to Situ Haonan, "Go and notify the little brothers outside the territory to distribute firearms to them all. At the same time, tell them not to forcefully collide with the enemy. If they can hide, they should hide and use the tactic of avoiding counterattacks. If they cannot fight, I will allow them to escape. Yes, Situ Haonan immediately followed suit. Subsequently, Shen Bai, accompanied by 300 core soldiers, did not kill directly, but hid in a safe house. Shen Bai did not intend to stay in the open, but rather prepared to stay in the dark. I want to win against the henchmen who have stronger strength and more troops than me. Shen Bai's true capital is only these 300 warriors. Only by not risking one's life can we achieve a complete comeback. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Competition for the King of Amsterdam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The vast city of Amsterdam is mainly divided into 4 regions, East, West, North, South, and North, under the influence of gangs and henchmen. Dongxing occupies a large portion of the territory in the western region, and all the pillars and industries in its hands are also distributed within the western region. Tonight, the western district of Amsterdam is even more lively than a few days ago. Under the command of Smith Dan, the godfather of the Haisho party, Jack and Brady dispatched a large number of troops, armed with firearms, to launch an attack on the territory of the Eastern Star. Go to hell, you yellow-skinned monkeys. The flames burst out and the sound of firearms exploded. In the streets and alleys of the Western District, there are occasional sounds of firearms and insults, as well as flickering flames. Everyone scatter, scatter. Don't clash with them, disperse and then fight them. The people and horses on the Dongxing territory have already received news from Shen Bai and quickly responded. At the moment when both sides are at war and personnel are facing each other and fighting. The people and horses of Dongxing, although each equipped with firearms, immediately dispersed as instructed, hiding in the streets and alleys to engage in guerrilla warfare with these ghosts. Fight and retreat at the same time. Shoot someone at the end of the alley near the east, and then fire at the end of the street to the west. After coming into contact with the opponent, he fired several firearms and then began to hide, leaving no trace. After a single encounter, it took less than half a minute and ended immediately. As for abandoning the territory, under Shen Bai's command, it had already been abandoned. Moreover, these dwarf mules from the East Star were not Shen Bai's warriors. Even if they were to block it desperately, few would really be willing to take their lives to block it. Instead, it would be better to scatter them directly to confuse the henchmen. Meanwhile, in Smith Dan's villa, Scissorman Brady pushed open the door to the study. Seeing Smith Dan sitting on the sofa, he cut open a cigar, lit it, and held it in his mouth. Godfather, Brady approached and greeted. How's the situation? Smith Dan shook his hand and threw a cigar lying on the table to Brady, then slowly exhaled a cigarette ring from his mouth. Scissorman Brady lit the cigar, put it in his mouth, took a deep breath, and while smoking, he replied, Our team has just entered the villa of Dongxing White Dragon, but we haven't found anyone inside. That yellow-skinned monkey is probably scared out of its wits. It fled with people early on, and by the time we arrived, the villa was already empty. As for the subordinates of Dongxing White Dragon, they also hid. The people and horses we sent to attack Dongxing's territory were always fighting and retreating after encountering them, and they dared not confront us head-on. They want to procrastinate with us, Smith Dan sneered. There are only over 1,000 people in the East Star, how can we compete with them? What can we compete with the Smith family for? Since Dongxing White Dragon doesn't show up, then swallow up all of Dongxing's territory in the Western District, cut off their foundation, and slowly clean up all of his subordinates. Take off the cigar, press it in the middle of the ashtray, turn it around, and extinguish it. A thick smoke erupted from his mouth, and in Smith Dan's eyes, a cold light burst out. He looked at Brady and ordered, except for the most basic guards and bodyguards, send all our remaining men and horses over, and in the shortest possible time, devour all the territory of the East Star in the Western District. Understood, Godfather. Upon hearing this, Brady immediately followed the instructions to proceed with the task. He also wants to seize the territory as soon as possible. It's early morning, around 1 o'clock. There is a basement in a garbage disposal station in the Western District. This is a very secret location specially developed by Dongxing, used as a safe house. Not to mention those ghosts, besides Shen Bai and Dongxing capturing Dragon and Tiger Situ Haonan, the other subordinates of Dongxing also learned about this place for the first time today. It can be said that this is the only absolutely safe place in the Western District. Now, Shen Bai is hiding in this safe house with Situ Haonan and his 300 soldiers, and only a few concealed subordinates have been sent to the outside world to gather information. Dong dong dong, a knock on the door rang out. Shen Bai in the room heard a voice and said, "Come in." The door opened and it was Situ Haonan who walked into the room. "Boss, I just received news that all of our territory in Dongxing has been lost. All the subordinates on the surface also hid, but many people died in the exchange of fire." "I know," Shen Bai replied simply upon hearing this. The people who died were all short mules, and Shen Bai didn't care about them. Anyway, like these short mules, one died, and two died as well. If you want to add personnel in the future, just recruit again. The truly important core is the 300 dead soldiers in the safe house. They are Shen Bai's absolute capital, and these are his foundation. Even if these dead soldiers were to tie them up for a bomb attack, they would not frown. With these people around, Shen Bai's power would be there. "Hey, are there any new developments on the Handy Party side?" "Yes," Situ Haonan immediately replied. "After the war, in order to quickly capture our territory, Smith Dan captured many more people from his side. Now, the vast majority of the Husho Party's manpower is located on this side of the Western District, to eliminate our subordinates. And in Smith Dan's villa, there are probably around 600 people left, which is twice the number of people we can command now." Upon hearing this, Shen Bai nodded. "I took out 2 exquisite revolvers from my arms and carefully wiped them with a cloth." A notice was issued that half an hour later, everyone was fully armed and launched a surprise attack on Smith Dan's estate. Shen Bai knew that even if he used his own strategy to attract a large number of people from Smith Dan, this guy will definitely leave a lot of people around to protect himself and prevent any sudden attacks on his side. But Smith Dan never expected that under his command, there were also these 300 fearless death warriors, and all personnel were equipped with heavy firearms. Even in Smith Dan's villa, there are still bodyguards equipped with over 600 people, and Shen Bai is confident that he can lead people to kill Smith Dan. This time, with a small but broad perspective, it is also the only opportunity to turn the tables. Only by eliminating the godfather Smith Dan can we easily take over the entire Amsterdam, establish the reputation of the Eastern Star in Holland, and become the king of Amsterdam. P.S. New book set sale, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets, even a flower, an evaluation ticket, or a monthly pass can do it. Qingming outing in happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Arrogance, One Rocket Bomb. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. Do book enthusiasts have anything they like? Request for review tickets and comments. In the early hours of the morning, 3 refrigerated food trucks were slowly moving forward on the road outside the Eastern District of Holland, Amsterdam. And what was loaded in these 3 freight trucks were not frozen food, but Shen Bai, Situ Haonan, and 300 soldiers with live ammunition under their command. "Boss, ahead is Smith Dan's estate." Situ Haonan held a firearm in his hand, glanced at the observation port, and reported in a deep voice to Shen Bai beside him. Shen Bai nodded at the words and continued to wipe the 2 revolvers in his hand. His face remained calm, but there was still a hint of excitement in his eyes. These 3 frozen food freight convoys are a company controlled by Dongxing in secret, used to handle some troublesome matters on a daily basis. On the surface, this company was established by several ghosts, but the real controller behind it is Xing Bai, and because the company's scale is not too large. Basically, no one knows, and even suspects that this company is controlled by Dongxing. Boss, have we been too adventurous this time? Situ Haonan's face looked a bit nervous compared to Xing Bai's excitement. Anyway, there are at least 600 people in Smith Dan's estate. Even if we have heavy firearms, if the other party disperses our personnel, delays our pace, and waits for them to return all the dispatched personnel to defense, with only our 300 people, we may not even have a chance to escape. Situ Haonan is not admitting guilt, but conducting rational analysis. The risk of this action is really too high. If he is not careful, not to mention himself and his 300 subordinates, Xing Bai may be buried in the estate. But when Xing Bai heard this, he smiled and looked at Situ Haonan, patting him on the shoulder as a sign to relax. You're right in your analysis, but I tell you, this time we definitely can take Smith. Upon hearing this, Situ Haonan's face was filled with confusion. Xing Bai said, "You overlooked a little bit. The ghosts' hearts are divided, and each one is very afraid of death. The 600 people in Smith's hands were simply short mules in the martial arts world, not armies. Even if they are treated as armies, it is still the army of the ghosts. The biggest characteristic of these ghosts is their fear of death. Not to mention these short mules, even on the battlefield, once they fall into a disadvantage, these people will immediately surrender and raise their hands to save their lives. Without the support of heavy firearms. In terms of combat effectiveness, not to mention 600 people, even if there were 800 people, Xing Bai would not take them seriously. In addition, on Smith Dan's side, there will be no heavy weapons. Mafias like them have connections with some local official forces. There is also an agreement that they will not use heavy firearms. Their heavy firearms are stored in the warehouse and will only be retrieved when needed, so there is no time to have them in the face of a raid. This is the absolute advantage that Xing Bai possesses. My subordinates are all martyrs with absolute loyalty. He used heavy firearms and had to arrest someone if there was a problem, but he took down Smith Dan, obtained documents of bribery from Smith Dan and officials, and took control of Amsterdam. He could completely suppress this matter. Why are these overseas people from Dongxing so arrogant? They are not afraid of death and don't care about their work. Otherwise, how could they establish themselves in Amsterdam, where ghosts are everywhere, and make the Haishaodang Smith family tolerate it? It's just being ruthless in doing things, it's being reckless. Smith's estate is incredibly luxurious. From the outside, you can see the shining lights inside, driving a street lamp every few steps, and the houses are also brightly lit. Although not as bright as the day, it can also be called a small city that never sleeps. Stop. The person in charge of guarding the entrance saw 3 refrigerated trucks driving towards this direction, especially at this time, which immediately made them alert. Hold the firearm in your hand and prepare to stop the vehicle. Bang. Boom. And obviously, this shout has become their last words. The drivers of 3 transport trucks slammed on the gas pedal and with a loud bang, they knocked people and the gate of the estate away. "Hands on," shouted Situ Haonan inside the car. I saw one small window after another on both sides of these 3 transport trucks, which were specially modified shooting ports. Crash open the gate and rush into the estate. The originally peaceful manner immediately recalled the deafening sound of firearms spraying one after another. Fires lit up everywhere. The vehicle rushed inward, and the firearms on both sides were wildly firing, taking away about 10 lives in an instant. In less than a moment, they were able to break into the villa complex. Opening the door and getting off the car, Xing Bai led Situ Haonan and 300 subordinates to kill along the way. Bang bang bang. Xing Bai held both revolvers and fired one at a time within a range of 30 meters. In just a short moment, more than 10 ghosts died under his gun. Situ Haonan beside him appeared a bit nervous when he was in the car, but now that the war had started, he appeared incredibly excited, with his submachine gun and firearm wildly firing, leading his soldiers to lead the way. From his hands, one hand grenade after another was smashed, quickly opening up a path. At the innermost villa of the estate, Smith was sleeping in his room. Suddenly, a thunderous sound sounded. Smith Dan rolled off the bed in shock. At the same time, Jack and Brady rushed into the room with panic on their faces. Jack said, "It's not good, Godfather. The people from Dongxing have come forward and are equipped with heavy firearms, with strong firepower." "What?" Smith Dan was surprised by the words, but quickly calmed down. "There are still over 600 people defending in the villa, and they are not so easy to kill. Immediately call and notify everyone to come back for support." "Yes." Scissorman Brady immediately ran to make a phone call and ordered people and horses to come back. But what Smith and others did not expect was more than 300 death attendants under Shen Bai's command charged recklessly, relying heavily on the advancement of firearms. In addition, as a sharpshooter, Shen Bai had over 100 people dying under his command alone. In less than 5 minutes, more than half of the 600 ghosts had already died or been injured. The remaining people, seeing such a situation, immediately collapsed, transformed into birds and beasts, scattered and fled. "Damn it!" Smith Dan stood on the balcony, watching a large number of henchmen frantically fleeing in the distance, his face extremely ugly. Turning around, he ordered Jack and Brady, along with the remaining men and horses under his command, to move objects and block the entrance and exit of this villa. They surrounded the villa and waited for their reinforcements. Shen Bai led his men to kill in front of the villa, and both sides began to shoot at each other, unable to break into the villa for a while. "Bring the big guy over." Shen Bai didn't have time to waste with them. Upon hearing this, the two subordinates immediately understood and brought in 2 rocket launchers. Shen Bai and Situ Haonan each fired 2 rockets towards Smith Dan's villa. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the room, Smith Dan only saw these 2 rockets flying, and his entire face turned white. Boom! Boom! A flash of fire suddenly appeared. Shen Bai rushed into the villa with his subordinates. When Smith Dan was found, he was already charred by flames and could no longer die. As for Jack and Brady, they were lucky. They only suffered some burns and were knocked unconscious by the impact of the rocket. "Boss, what should these 2 people do?" Situ Haonan held a firearm and pointed at Jack and Brady's heads. Shen Bai said, "Take them away first." Situ Haonan immediately followed suit. At the same time, 2 younger brothers brought a larger metal box and placed it in front of the provincial white, which was the safe. "Boss, we found the safe." Shen Bai waved and the little brother next to him immediately understood, handing over a shotgun. Shen Bai smashed into the safe and opened it. Inside are some beautiful knives and some documents, which are exactly the documents that Smith used to bribe officials. "Stuff all these things into the already prepared travel bag." Shen Bai quickly got on the car and retreated with all the QR codes. As Smith Dan's villa was bombed, the next morning, the news suddenly rose in Amsterdam. Everyone didn't expect that Dongxing, who has always been overshadowed by Heshadang, could turn the tables against the trend. Now, Amsterdam, the weather is about to change. P.S. The new book sets sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Collecting Little Brother, Ripper Jack and Scissor Hand Cloth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as the outside world was in turmoil, the dead in Situ Haonan, who had survived the battle to defeat Smith Dan, were receiving treatment at a black clinic on the outskirts of Amsterdam's West End. At present, Shen Bai's hands truly belong to the core strength, which is this group of people, nearly 300 dead warriors and Situ Haonan, a loyal thug. The strength of these people is beyond doubt, as can be seen when they defeated Smith Dan. In the room, Situ Hao sat expressionlessly on the diagnosis and treatment chair with a doctor beside him, carefully helping him sew and bandage his wound. All right. A dozen or so minutes of silence quickly passed, and when the doctor sutured the wound, his forehead was already soaked in fine sweat. He wrapped the bandage around it, and when the doctor withdrew, he respectfully nodded at Shen Bai before silently leaving. Continuing. There were only two people left in the ward, Situ Haonan and Shen Bai. The latter took out 2 cigars from the lining of his suit and casually threw one to Situ Haonan. Yes, boss. Situ Haonan agreed to take the cigar and casually twisted his arm wrapped in bandages, making a crunching sound. Situ Haonan spat, his face somewhat sinister. In his opinion, in the territory of He Lan, only his own leader, Dongxing White Dragon Shen Bai, had the strength to dominate, and some other miscellaneous fish were not even worthy of being opponents of his own leader. But during the assault on this group of miscellaneous fish, he was hit by a stray bullet on his arm. For the proud Situ Haonan, the pain was small, but the most important thing was being attacked by the miscellaneous fish, which was a shame. At this moment, Shen Bai simply comforted Situ Haonan with his eyes, lit his cigar, and took a deep breath. After the taste of the cigar seeped into his heart and spleen, he became intoxicated by the system's prompts. Cigars are very healthy products that help to refresh the mind. For Shen Bai, the taste of cigars is secondary, and the most important function is this refreshing function. Shen Bai's mixed society needs to always maintain a calm and clear mind, which is necessary. Of course, more importantly, in his past life, he has watched many movies and TV shows where the big shot smoked a cigar and put it on a fork. Now that he is also a big shot, he naturally needs to learn it. Congratulations to the host for completing the system release task. Take down Smith Dan and take Amsterdam. Complete the task and receive rewards. 2 elite loyalty cards and 300 ordinary loyalty cards. May I ask if you are collecting it now? Claim. The system's prompt was very detailed, and the 2 elite loyalty cards reminded Shen Bai of their belonging goals, which were the 2 shrewd and capable talents under the hands of this ghost in the battle to defeat Smith Dan. Jack the Ripper, Brady the Scissor. To be fair, these 2 people did cause themselves a lot of trouble before, but in their past struggles with Smith Dan, their demonstrated strength was appreciated by Shen Bai. Haonan, go bring those 2 people over. Yes, boss. Although Shen Bai did not specify who he was, Situ Haonan had already figured out through the boss's gaze. He opened the door and went out, and soon came back, followed by Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissor. At this point, there was no more stubbornness on the faces of the 2, only a hint of guilt. As soon as Smith died, the 2 naturally fell into the hands of Shen Bai. During the process of surrendering, Shen Bai only briefly told the 2 that surrendering could survive, and if they did not surrender, they would be killed directly. Everyone knows that the name Dongxing Bai Long and Shen Bai represent 4 characters in Amsterdam, being ruthless and ruthless. Furthermore, in the logic of ghosts, abandoning the dark and turning to the bright is a very wise choice. The original godfather, Smith Dan, has already been killed, and Amsterdam is likely to be in the hands of Shen Bai, the East Star White Dragon in front of him, in the future. At this point, surrendering and joining the camp of the strong may not necessarily be a bad thing. It doesn't matter who the boss is, and being able to survive is the most important thing. At this moment, Shen Bai was examining the panel of the system, and the 2 people who had pledged allegiance had become his subordinates. On the page of the system, on the elite red stick page, the names of Scissorman Brady and Ripper Jack could be seen. The only flaw that makes people feel is the loyalty of the 2 people, both of whom have only 30 points of loyalty. He Lan's group of ghosts really focus on bullying the weak and being afraid of the hard, and are flexible in dealing with them. Do you want to use the elite loyalty card? Yes. There's nothing to hesitate about. For these 2 people, if they don't use the elite loyalty card, Shen Bai doesn't trust them to stay by their side. After all, who is willing to be on guard against the 2 time bombs around them at any time? Doubting people is not necessary. Shen Bai understands this principle, but it also needs to be directed towards whom. If we were to face the bullying and cowardly ghosts like He Lan and tell them not to doubt people, we might not even know how we died. After using the 2 elite loyalty cards, Shen Bai withdrew his gaze and focused on Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissor, who had already been brought by Situ Haonan. At this moment, there were some obvious changes on the faces of the 2 people. The guilty expression had disappeared, and there was only firmness in their eyes, even admiration, as if they had determined the only goal they wanted to pursue in their lifetime. At this point, looking at the pages of the red stick subordinates in the system, the loyalty of Scissorhands Brady and Ripper Jack has reached 100%, which means loyalty to death. This means that even if Shen Bai dies, these people will immediately commit suicide and follow him. Having made up for the only flaw, Shen Bai immediately began preparing to deal with the remaining forces of Smith Dan. Smith lived in Amsterdam for many years and was once known as the Godfather. The meaning of these 2 words is very deep, and Shen Bai is very clear that it is not enough to kill Smith Dan. The most important thing is to finish the work. However, with these 2 major cadres under Amsterdam's leadership, the execution of this final work is likely to face fewer obstacles, which is also a move taken by Shen Bai to prepare for the overall situation. Now that Smith Dan has been taken down, it's time for you, as one of his 2 former officials, to prove yourself. Go and gather Smith Dan's men. Next, we need to take control of the entire city of Amsterdam. Shen Bai remained expressionless and calmly instructed what to do next. Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissorer, who were completely loyal to him, listened quietly, with their eyes occasionally squinting and a fierce light flashing through them. The 2 of them already had a plan in mind, and after Shen Bai's investigation and filling in the gaps, it gradually became perfect. Understood. Godfather. The word Godfather originally belonged to Smith Dan, but now that Smith Dan is dead, these 2 words will not disappear with his death, but will only be passed on to the next underground king of Amsterdam, Shen Bai. We'll do it immediately. We won't let the Godfather down. After reassuring Shen Bai again, Scissorhands Brady and Ripper Jack left. Situ Haonan, who was left behind, walked over and reported to Shen Bai, "Boss, we also lost a lot of combat power in this battle." Although Situ Haonan was arrogant, he had to admit that Smith Dan, an old fox, still had 2 tricks in his hand. The firepower layout of the villa was very fierce, and he had to pay the price of over 100 soldiers to win it. The 300 dead soldiers under Shen Bai's command are now only about 150 or so. Compared to Situ Haonan's regret for these brave and fearless subordinates, Shen Bai's mood did not fluctuate much, only nodded lightly and agreed. It's impossible to achieve great success without paying some price on the way to Big Brother. If it weren't for paying half the price, we wouldn't be able to defeat Smith Dan, let alone take Amsterdam. Fortunately, this mission has provided a reward of 300 ordinary loyalty cards, which is enough to further expand the team under his command. He instructed Situ Haonan to gather the remaining soldiers and horses from the East Star that had been scattered due to the battle, and Shen Bai promoted 100 short mules from the East Star to become martyrs. As for the remaining 200 ordinary loyalty cards, 2 or 3 days later, Scissor Wielder Brady and Ripper Jack, relying on the reputation of their former 2 major cadres, quickly gathered together Smith's former team. Shen Bai, on the other hand, selected 200 tall and powerful ghosts from them, turning them into warriors and instructing them all to shave their heads. A team with obvious characteristics that are not only easy to control, but also can increase its deterrent power exponentially. Shen Bai named this team, consisting of 200 tall bald ghosts, the Bald Party, under the rule of Brady and Jack. P.S. The new book sets sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets, even a flower, an evaluation ticket, or a monthly pass can do it. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Becoming the King of Amsterdam, Second Change. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With this ruthless and hardworking bald ghost guy helping to manage the ghost guy's short mule, along with over 200 dead warriors from the East Star. With the strength of crushing, Amsterdam will experience ups and downs in the next few days. After seeing the strength of these two teams, many people began to choose wisely to avoid their sharp edges. The name of Shen Bai Dong, Star and White Dragon swept through Amsterdam like a storm. After taking over the territory of Amsterdam, he became the true king of Amsterdam and finally walked from the shadows to the light. As for the large estates and territories that once belonged to Smith Dan, they were quickly taken over by Shen Bai due to the loyalty of the two major cadres, Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissor. Territory is still very important for a gang. With this vast estate and territory, Shen Bai no longer needs to huddle in small estates in the western suburbs of Amsterdam like before. Instead, they chose to live in the largest estate with a large number of subordinates. The 250 Eastern Star Death Warriors and 200 bald ghosts under their command were all arranged in this estate, carrying sophisticated firearms to safeguard the safety of the Eastern Star White Dragon. And the other younger brothers who had not yet become the dead, who were newly recruited, were not qualified to approach Shen Bai's surroundings. They were all arranged to be scattered by Shen Bai. Control other territories in Amsterdam, as well as various entertainment venues. In the morning, the doorbell of Shen Bai's room was ringing, and a dead soldier walked in after receiving permission from the room. Boss. The deceased stood upright, with his head slightly lowered by 45 degrees. At this angle, the perspective in front of the deceased was filled with the mahogany floor below. Well, let Jack come see me. The dead man looked at the floor in front of him, his heart as calm as stagnant water. After hearing Shen Bai's command, he slowly withdrew from the room. Not long after, the dead soldier went back and forth, but this time, unlike before, he was followed by Jack the Ripper. After this period of proof, Jack excelled in completing a series of commands from Shen Bai, proving its value and ability. Jack, who is now completely different from before, has shed his previously panicked expression and become much more calm. In front of him is a pair of shiny round glasses, dressed in a black dress, giving the impression of being polite and refined. But those who are familiar with the three words, Ripper, dare not underestimate this demon at all, because it is difficult for anyone to be as cruel as Jack, able to smile and open a person's stomach and send them to Satan's embrace. The reason why Shen Bai chose to take in the two murderous gods, Jack the Ripper and Brady the Scissor, was twofold. Firstly, he focused on the overall situation, whether it was ruling Amsterdam or gathering the remnants of Smith Dan's army. These tasks were more suitable for these two murderous gods to do. As for the second reason, it is that these two individuals are indeed capable and talented. Moreover, Jack used to be Smith Dan's think tank. It can be said that over the years, Smith Dan has been able to rule the city of Amsterdam safely, sitting firmly on the throne of the Godfather and bearing the crown of the underground king of Amsterdam. A large part of the reason for this is because of Jack, the intelligence tank, who was able to manage the Noah power in an orderly manner. Jack, now we have taken the underground kingdom of Amsterdam, but the kingdom cannot just exist in the darkness. Shen Bai left the expensive leather seat and walked to the safe next to the bookshelf while speaking. I want our kingdom to be able to walk on the streets of Amsterdam in the daytime. The creaking sound of the password will echoed through the room with a deep, magnetic sound, and then with a crisp click, the safe was opened. Shen Bai took out a stack of documents from inside and turned around to hand them over to Jack. These documents were copied from Smith Dan's estate and serve as evidence of communication between the former Godfather and some officials in Amsterdam. As Shen Bai said, as expected, his kingdom cannot exist solely in the darkness, but must also be worshipped by the citizens of Amsterdam during the day. The former Godfather Smith Dan, like Shen Bai's blueprint, also wanted to take this path, and inevitably had to deal with officials in Amsterdam. Moreover, before taking down Smith Dan, a large number of heavy firearms were used, and there was also a lot of commotion in the city. Now the authorities have noticed us. We can't wait passively. You go negotiate with them, Shen Bai said to Jack. With Jack's wisdom, he naturally knew what Shen Bai wanted to do. He immediately lowered his head and took the stack of documents from Shen Bai's hand, saying, "Godfather, I'll do it now." Jack quickly left. One night had passed, and the next day, it had become Shen Bai's estate. In the center of the luxurious reception hall, Shen Bai dressed in a black suit, displaying solemnity. However, his calm expression on his face and the coffee in his hand showed his disdain for the fat, bloated middle-aged man in front of him. Solemnity and oppression, Shen Bai's movements and demeanor were contradictory at this moment, which also made the middle-aged man across from him feel a lot of pressure. From time to time, some fine sweat oozed from his forehead, and he frequently took out a silk handkerchief to wipe it. For the title of Shen Bai Dongxing White Dragon, the director of the Amsterdam Bureau, who is now the obese middle-aged man York, he has long heard of it. But fame is not as good as meeting. Now that he is truly sitting in front of Shen Bai, York feels Shen Bai's pressure. Shen Bai valued himself and waited in a black suit, which is enough to prove. But Shen Bai's lack of expression and casual coffee-drinking behavior left York feeling a bit confused. Shen. He sat silently for a few more seconds. York couldn't bear the pressure and stood up to speak, but when Shen spoke out, he seemed to realize something and immediately changed his mind. Godfather, the new godfather of Amsterdam, York expresses his sincerest respect to you. York was once a subordinate of Smith Dan, but due to his understanding of current affairs and adaptability, he was assigned an undercover mission by Smith Dan. After cleaning up York's dirty background, he was also sent to the underdog station and gradually supported to the position of director. Therefore, Smith Dan held a large amount of black material in the hands of this obese middle-aged man, which had enough weight to put him to death. York is well aware of current affairs and knows how to be flexible. When he learned that Smith was killed and the new godfather he took over was Shen Bai, known as the East Star White Dragon, he understood that the cloud above his head had not disappeared, nor could he see a clear sky, but was once again shrouded in another dark cloud. The black materials in the hands of former Smith Dan are now 100% certain to have fallen into Shen Bai's hands. The former godfather can rely on these black materials to guide himself like an arm, but the new underground king of Amsterdam in front of him, this East Star White Dragon, can do the same. Sit down, don't be so reserved. Shen Bai saw that the result he wanted had already appeared, and there wasn't much expression on his face, but he politely invited York to sit down. York respectfully agreed and sat back on the sofa with his legs crossed. Shen Bai's fingers twitched slightly, and the dead man beside him brought coffee and placed it in front of York. Try it, the coffee beans that were just delivered from Mount Afer in the morning have a strong taste, and I really like them, Shen Bai said. York nodded respectfully again and took a light sip of coffee as ordered. The coffee was very bitter, and York usually didn't like it very much. He preferred cola because it was sweet. But at this moment, York's expression was so hard to swallow that he didn't dare to show it. His chubby face was filled with smiles and he said, "Thank you, Godfather. I also really like this taste. If you like it, that's good." Shen Bai nodded and followed the conversation closely. "Then, let's talk about the main business." Yes, York's face immediately became serious, he put down his coffee, and listened respectfully with his ears perked up. Shen Bai was satisfied with the situation and said, "Smith Dan used to trade with you, but you can continue to trade with me in the future." "Yes, yes, yes." York nodded. Shen Bai put down his coffee and said, "But you have to remember one thing, there will be no Smith family in Amsterdam in the future, only me, Dongxing Bai Long. Do you understand?" "Understood. Understood." York immediately stood up, his head curved at a 90-degree angle. I will definitely follow your teachings, Father. P.S. The new book sets sail, kneeling down to ask everyone to cast some flowers, review tickets, monthly tickets, even a flower, an evaluation ticket, or a monthly pass can do it. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.